My name's Kerry Diamond. I'm the founder of Cherry Bombe and the host of Radio Cherry Bombe. You got to hear a lot from me yesterday. I'm back today. We're switching things up a little bit. Team Cherry Bombe doesn't know this. I'm looking at our CEO. She's like, what is going on? Next, we're going to combine our next two speakers into one panel because they are two women I admire very much and they have a lot in common. And I thought it might be more powerful. Robin's back. Hi, Robin. How are you? Speaking of powerful women, I thought it would be really powerful for you to hear from the two of them together to understand like what's possible and what you can do when you kind of fight the system. So I would like to welcome, why don't you guys come on up and I'll read about you. April Gargiulo from Vintner's daughter and Camilla Marcus from Westbourne. Come on up. Hi, have a seat. And thank you for being flexible. I love the flexibility. And they both have cool, yeah, I know, and they both have cool glasses. So that's the real reason I invited them up here. I was telling April and Camilla that there was so much. Is your mic on? Yeah. Okay. I don't think so. Oh, hold on. Let's try this mic. Pass that one over. Okay.
How's that? Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
We're friends, so it's easy to say yes. Wait, is mine on? Oh, yeah.
Yes. I was just saying there was so much when we were talking earlier that just so much wisdom yesterday. For those of you who were with us yesterday, it was just one nugget after another and a lot of power and wisdom in the room. So I appreciate you being flexible. All right, let me talk a little
Kerry
bit about...
did tell us that right before we were on stage. How incredible yesterday was, how many nuggets of wisdom there were.
We're like, great, can't wait to get on stage.
You two are going to be equally great. All right, so April Gargiulo is the founder of Vintner's Daughter, a beauty brand that was inspired by winemaking. April is part of the Gargiulo Vineyards family of winemakers here in Napa Valley, and she took her key learnings from the wine world and applied them to her cult beauty products, which we'll learn more about in just a second. And then Camilla Marcus, I should be able to do this by heart. Camilla has been a very good friend of Cherry Bombe over the years and has appeared at several Jubilees on radio and the magazine. You're our version of like an EGOT. So do you guys know what EGOT is? You know, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. Okay. All right. Next, I'd like to introduce Camilla. Camilla is the founder of Westbourne, the sustainable CPG company known for its avocado oil. She is also the author of the brand new cookbook, My Regenerative Kitchen, Plant-Based Recipes and Sustainable Practices to Nourish Ourselves and the Planet. Camilla is signing books after today's session, so she'll be right across the way with the folks at Wild Plum. Camilla is also a mom of four and an advocate for families in the hospitality industry. You're probably wondering, okay, what do these two have in common? They are both kind of black sheeps in their chosen industries. Camilla got her start in the restaurant industry. That's how we started to know you. She went to culinary school. She was a chef. She spent many successful years in Danny Meyer's organization. A lot of you know Danny. He's one of the most respected. There's some very friendly flies today. I'm not sure. He's one of the most respected folks in the industry. And you got there and immediately just started bucking the system. You had lots of ideas about how things should go. And I remember one thing that Camilla told me years ago that has stuck with me. She said, we spend more on flowers than we spend on childcare. And it shouldn't be that way. And that was just one of the things you started trying to chip away at until you finally decided you needed to do your own thing to try out all these things that you thought were better ways forward. Can you talk a little bit just about how did you become this? Were you born this way, like Lady Gaga? Were you born this way?
I mean, I wish I was Lady Gaga. Yes, I was born this way. I didn't realize probably till my later adult years that it could be a positive, and you know, you just kind of can't help it. Anyone who knows me really well, like I say what I mean what I say. I can't hold it in even for 5 seconds. I can't fake it. And I just always was born, I think, with the perspective of why do we have to accept things just because it's how it always is? And a lot of times, if you really take a minute to assess it, you follow the money, you look at the systems, who benefits, who doesn't, kind of start to realize that maybe we should be challenging those things more. I mean, you mentioned Danny. A lot of people don't realize, you know, I was very instrumental. I met Suzanne Cups on the line when I staged. I basically did a tour of every restaurant. I worked every single one of the restaurants for about a week. And I said, look, I can't help the business grow or develop. I was head of business development until I really understand the fabric, right? I can't come from the outside. And I'll never forget, I met Suzanne Cups. She was a sous chef at Gramercy Tavern. I started to realize the company had never had a female executive chef. in 30 years. You know, there's no accident in that. And so I sort of said, look, like, we got to start thinking about this as a company. I don't think it was intentional, but I think, right, it's things just kind of go as they go until someone decides to say, you know what, maybe it doesn't have to be that way. And I'll never forget, I met Suzanne Cuff. She has an amazing background in history. And I said, you know, we got to put a woman in charge of the next restaurant, like, no more. You know, so I do think it's about see something, say something, which is a motto I use a lot at my company. Like, I want everyone to be a canary in the coal mine. If we're not doing that, we're not progressing and we're not moving forward. So yeah, I think, you know, third child, only daughter in my family. And I just think I've just always been very outspoken, for better or worse. I guess my one other anecdote is I was, I don't know, 7, and I was a total tomboy till the age of 16. Like, this is not who went to school for many, many years. I have 2 older brothers who I adored, and my school said you have to wear a skirt. I had a uniform elementary school, and I said, well, like, I'd rather die than wear a skirt. So I'm sorry, what? And they said, well, if you don't wear a skirt, you're not going to be in school anymore. And I said, well, also on the days it's rainy and it's cold, oh, well, you can wear tights. Why do I have to wear tights and he gets to wear pants and a sweatshirt? Like, this makes no sense. So I actually collected signatures and I got them to reverse the policy. And it's very sweet. But like, my poor mom is like, what is happening? She was always supportive, but she was always like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I don't understand. Why does a kid next to me get to be comfortable in the rain? Like, my answer is tights. I mean, give me a break.
I wish you were in my school because we had to wear a skirt too, and the boys would flip our skirts up all the times. So the girls would always stand at recess with like our, you know, guarding our skirts so they wouldn't get flipped up. And when I think back to that, I am so pissed off and like mad for my little self. And I wish that the nuns and the teachers had spoken up in our defense and let us wear pants. Yeah. So anyway, good for you. But you also got kicked out of nursery school or kindergarten or something, didn't you, for asking questions?
That's true. I was ejected from my brother's school, and my mom said, well, why? And they said, well, she asked questions we don't know the answers to. And she said, well, is it that big of a deal to just say, I don't know? I mean, she's 4. So question everything, I guess, is my motto.
You're still asking questions people don't know the answers to, just FYI. All right, April, let's talk about you. So you are the equivalent in the beauty industry. So I don't even think you think of yourself as part of the beauty industry, and you really operate outside the norms. And a lot of you don't know this, but that's the industry I come from. You never use words like anti-aging. You've always embraced clean beauty, although I don't know if you like that term. We could talk about that later. You've resisted the urge to launch product after product, and you all know how the beauty industry is just constantly churning out products. Your line includes 3 products and a fragrance that you only put out occasionally. What has given you the courage and the conviction to do the opposite of what this huge global multi-gazillion-dollar industry does?
Well, I think a lot of it is where we are right now. It's Napa Valley. It's the way I was raised. It's my family. Quality and craftsmanship always came first in everything. I remember I begged my dad for Chef Boyardee ravioli in a can, and he basically was like, over my dead body. Went and got,
Italian?
Oh yeah. Gargiulo. Oh yeah. So he went and got the pasta crank, he got the flour, he got the eggs, and we were like making pasta for the rest of the day. So that is the family I came from. I also had, skin stuff my entire life. And so I was kind of had my head in the sand, to be honest, about skincare. I was very aware of what was in my food and food systems. And it wasn't until I was pregnant with my first daughter, who actually came with me here today. It wasn't until I was pregnant with her. I think a lot of, this happens to a lot of new moms. You start looking at all the ingredients of all the things. And many of those things were very expensive skincare products that I had. And I was shocked at how low quality they were and how cheaply they were made, even if they were $300 or $400. And so I set out to create a skincare brand that sat on the same philosophical foundations as Napa Valley, as the world I came from, the family I came from, quality, craftsmanship, meticulous formulations. And so I started to kind of peel back the layers of like, we all sit here and understand that whole food is what's best for our bodies, right? We all understand that processed food is not, I'm not saying that we never have it, but we understand theoretically that it is not as good for our bodies. Well, our skin is our largest organ. And so to think that we would feed our skin with processed ingredients just didn't sit right with me, obviously. And so I just started peeling back the layers until I get to a point where the only way I can create skincare that is going to connect with the skin at the level I want is if I start with whole plants. They are the most nutrient dense. They are going to speak, literally truth to your skin. And so, it takes me 3 to 5 weeks to make every single bottle. That is 66 times slower than the industry average. So, yeah.
Let me ask, did you have people tell you this will never work?
Over and over and over again. Yes. I mean, the majority of skincare in the United States is made in one of 5 or 6 labs. The majority of skincare is just white labeled, which is basically you buy a formula off the shelf. Maybe you change the scent a little bit and then you put and then you put your label on it, right? And it gets made in 2 or 3 minutes. And so for me to come and say, I want to completely change the game, this is why we are friends. I want to completely change the game, and I want to start with whole plants. That was the first thing. They were like, no way. I want to spend 3 to 5 weeks making it. They were like, no way. The kind of woman-run lab that I now get to work with, I showed up at her doorstep with cookies and cakes that I did not make. So thank you all bakers in the room. I would show up with all of them, like literally every week or so, until finally I think she basically said, and has since told me this, April, I just had to kind of get you off my back. And her, she agreed to make like this very small quantity for me at the beginning. And I was just so grateful. And it was, I remember she literally said to me, April, I haven't done anything like this since the 70s. So, yeah.
Okay, very cool. Camilla, similarly for you, you opened a restaurant in New York City called Bourne that I loved very much, that I don't know if any of you got to go to it, but it was a beautiful space. And I don't know if you describe it this way, but I think of it as a laboratory for your ideas about things like tipping, front of house, back of house. A lot of you in this room are recovering restaurant owners like Angela, but the complications with tipping, back of house, front of house, how everyone gets paid, things like that. So you came in, wanted to try and do things differently. Also childcare. You did a lot around childcare, which I want you to talk about. But did you have people say to you, Camilla, this is just not going to work?
Oh, I think every entrepreneur, every person in this room, frankly, I think if you're female at one point in your life, you've probably been told, hell no, and who do you think you are? And no one does it that way. Yeah, but my team always laughs, like, you don't hear the word no, do you? Like, I do think I'm kind of wired. I don't hear it. And even if I do hear it, I get really like game on and I get kind of obsessed.
I literally hear in my head, not yet.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'm like, now I got to win them over. I think I become obsessed with that person, kind of like you got to knock like 20 times sometimes. Look, I'll even say I had 2 full book proposals completely rejected by every single publisher. Like, this is not the first book I tried to publish and write. In fact, I have a lot of people say to me, no, it's not your first book. I'm like, no, it is. And I worked so hard over like 7 years to try and get a book out. For sure. And I think, look, even when you do those things, right, not everyone wants to work for a company like that. Not everyone wants to have a more challenging job. When we hire people, I say, look, I'm asking you to do, their avocado oil. I always tell them, we're doing a supply chain that no one else has. And we're constantly trying to improve it and break through a lot of barriers. So if you're looking for a plug and play, 9 to 5, clock it in, like, this is not for you. So even in that sense, there's a lot of people that sort of say, hell no, I don't want to work with that either. But I take a hell no into game on.
April, I want to go back a little bit because you are from here and your family does have a winery here. Can you tell us about the family wine business and what it was like growing up in that?
Well, okay. So my mom's family has been in Napa Valley making wine since the late 60s. It was something that was always a big part of, obviously, growing up. My parents didn't start growing grapes until the late 80s and didn't start making wine until the 90s. And so agriculture was, the agricultural component of it was always a really big part. And like I said, it didn't it did not come in our house unless my dad grew it or one of his friends grew it. It is something that, it was something, again, as a kid, I probably struggled with because that's not how everybody else was necessarily rolling. Napa Valley has literally, it is the shoulders upon which Vintner's Daughter stands. I have all the same no's, and to have this community that lives these values so truly and beautifully, in the face of a lot of those no's, I literally, like I said, standing on the shoulders of giants, people who have proved that those values can live in the world.
What did you take from winemaking that you applied to your business?
Well, I thought making skincare in 3 weeks was nothing. Winemaking, it's
good
right.
point.
Winemaking's 3 years. I thought this is the most genius business ever. Like I'm going to make it, and 3 weeks later I can sell it. And then of course finding out that no, that's not the way it works. So my dad's always like, April, you were genius. Takes me 3 years to make something.
That's so funny. I never thought of that. Camilla, folks might not know you're a native of California. Tell us where you grew up.
I grew up in Los Angeles. People are like, oh, no, but really where? I'm like, no, actually there. And my mom was born in Los Angeles, too. So sort of a rare second generation actual local, like not in the suburbs. And ironically, my next door neighbor was Mrs. Gooch, which I actually didn't really put together until I was writing the book. And I was like, maybe it started there. Like, she tested all new products. For those who don't know, she was sort of the godmother of natural grocery. Whole Foods bought her stores when they came to Los Angeles. She was way ahead of her time. I mean, in the 80s, people were not talking packaging and, all sorts of really cool new products. So she would always test stuff on me and get my feedback, which I should have known then would have helped me later in my life. So, we shopped locally, we composted, we ate plant-based. I wish I grew up on a farm. I'm trying to give my kids at least some level of that upbringing, but I think very much that same ethos of we knew who grew our food. We made things at home from scratch. I always say I had the untradeable lunch. Like I would do anything to give away what I had. And now I'm like, I'm grateful. I think I have a good palate because of that. I think it really trained me to be appreciative of where my food comes from and sort of, thinking slow instead of fast. But dream background. I wish I grew up on a vineyard.
Camilla, I was listening to a podcast you were on during the pandemic. So it was very interesting listening to it. It was with Rebecca Minkoff on her show. And I didn't know this about you, but you said that it wasn't until you were at Danny Meyer's organization and you were working on a project about sustainability that's when it sort of turned something in your head. And you were like, this is the path I want to be on.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think of myself a little bit like I was meant to be an entrepreneur, but a little bit of a reluctant entrepreneur. Honestly, when I accepted the job with Danny Meyer, I was like, great, I'm going to be there for 20 years. Everyone stays there forever. Like, this is going to be great. And then about a year in, we started working on this sustainable food project. The rise of sort of conscious capitalism, the attention on ingredients and beauty, what you're wearing, right? Allbirds and Rothy's. All my friends were like obsessed with showing me, their shoes are going to save the world. And then I'm like, okay, but what do you have for lunch today? And it's like a burger from, some crappy place. And I sort of was like, it's so interesting that my generation's obsessed with caring about the planet and everything other than food. And yet you're dining out 3 times a day. You make more decisions about food and beverage than anything else in your life. There's this disconnect impact.
I feel like it's important for this room to hear that.
So I actually learned this from an investor. Food is 100% total addressable market. There is almost no other business like it. You make more decisions with your wallet, with your brain, with your body about what you eat and drink in your daily life than anything else. Like, track it, write it down and be like, oh, I grabbed a coffee. Okay, that's 1. Oh, I grabbed, a snack. That's 2, right? Everything else that you're doing, your clothing, your beauty, even decisions about your kids, I promise you pay more attention to what you eat and drink than what you're doing for your kids in your life. And so I started sort of talking to people in the company about it. And no one wanted to talk about, hey, we could be plastic free. I worked really extensively with Shake Shack. And I was like, look, we got to talk about a real plant-based burger. You have amazing chefs in this company. Let's talk about a real veggie burger, not a deep fried stuffed mushroom. Yes, don't get me wrong, it's totally delicious, but what's going to happen when we get to the next generation? They're going to start to dominate spend. And like, we need to think about what they care about, what I care about. So that's when I started to realize, the industries are getting right. Warby Parker was on the cover of every magazine at that time. And I'm like, glasses, my husband wears glasses. He owns 2 pairs of glasses. He eats 6 times in a day. Like, whoa, if we took that model and really applied an impact mindset to what we need to sustain ourselves, and need, not want, you have to eat and drink, it's even more compelling. So that's when I became obsessed with really food and impact and going back to basics. I know this fly really likes it.
The fly loves us. I think it's one of the flowers that the fly is in love with. So we'll just,
It's a good sign.
nature, we'll bear with it. April, I want you to talk to us about your fragrance, because it's so interesting. You've got a beautiful fragrance, and you, again, have gone against the industry, and you do it very differently and doesn't come out, it's not available all the time. Tell us about it and why.
Sure. I think a lot of skincare is dominated by scent. It is dominated by synthetic artificial scent often. One of the things about Vintner's Daughter is that I wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything artificial. It wasn't dominated by scent. It was 100% dominated by performance. And so again, I spent 3 to 5 weeks making every single bottle that imparts a specific scent. Sometimes it is good. Sometimes it is, one of my products smells like kombucha, whether you like that or not. It's fermented. It takes 5 weeks. I spend a lot of time on that. I certainly never want to cover that up. And so also in the wine world, having grown up, scent wasn't something that was encouraged, right? Like I was definitely not encouraged to have scent in my shampoo. I mean, certainly not perfume, but my shampoo, my, lotion, anything, because it interferes with your appreciation and analysis of the wine and the scent. Now, I was very much encouraged to, smell this bay leaf, smell it after it's been in the sun, smell, the world around us. Absolutely. And so, that's the background. It was never part of anything I thought about as it relates to skincare. Now, fast forward, I'm sitting at a dinner. I'm sitting next to this woman who was a master perfumer, and we're chatting. And at first, I'm thinking, oh gosh, I have nothing in common. Like we just don't share. And what am I going to talk about? And she starts telling me that she has moved away from synthetic world. Many perfumes, the majority of the constituency of the scent is synthetic, and that she was moving away from it because she felt that it was too static, that it kind of sat on your skin and never evolved. And she found naturals to be far more dynamic, far more complex. And so she had moved into that world. And, by the end of the night, I was completely, we were just absolutely on the same page. And so we just said, okay, we have to do something together. And so 3 years ago, we created the first scent. We call it Understory. Again, I had never been in the scent world, so I gave her this like completely esoteric idea of what a scent can be. I had just read this book called Overstory, and there's nodding heads. If you haven't read it, it's incredible. And so my idea was, okay, this idea of an understory, this liminal space, this in-between space between the forest canopy and the floor, and what could this magical space be in a scent? And she completely took this this esoteric idea and turned it into this beautiful, beautiful scent. And so it is something that we were able to make 3 years ago. Last year, we were not able to make it because the ingredients that kind of hold the biggest percentage, the harvest just wasn't great. And so much like wine, we have vintages. Some years they are good. Some years they do not live up to our standards. And so this year we were able to make our second vintage really of Understory. And it's, when you wear, I think, traditional scent, it's much more about kind of an outward expression, a kind of announcement. When you wear Understory, it's very kind of intimate. It's a much more kind of personal moment, which I also love. It was really fun that we got to do it again this year.
I'm surprised you said when you were sitting next to the perfumer, you didn't think you two would have much to talk about. And when I think of wine, I think about the fragrance of wine.
Absolutely. But I am like my friend Camille, and I do not have a poker face. And so I thought, oh no, I am going to offend her up and down, left and right, because I just, it was literally never something that was appreciated in my house.
Well, it's like chefs don't wear, right? Anyone who works in food, you're not supposed to wear fragrance. So I get that.
Camilla, tell us about your book. I know like you mentioned, you worked on this for a long time. And I too thought, I was like, when I wrote this as her debut book, I was like, that can't be true. But it is. You worked for a long time to bring this book to life. We've all heard the term regenerative farming, but I don't think a lot of us have heard the term regenerative kitchen. Tell us what that means.
So the goal of the book is really to take what I feel has been pretty impressive, right? You look at Inconvenient Truth. If only we had listened to Al Gore way back in the day, we might be in a different position. You know, he sort of used movie as the format, right, of the climate crisis and what we can do about it. And then you look at Dan Barber's Third Plate. Actually, it always makes me smile because so many people say, yeah, I know it, I own it. I go, have you read it? And they're like, well, you know, it's very academic. And I'm like, okay, but you own it? Like, pick it up, at least skim it. It's really helpful. You know, he really, again, used book, but more in sort of the academic nonfiction sense of really explaining that we are losing our topsoil at an alarming rate, which has implications for growing food to feed, but also this system, regenerative agriculture, which is going back, it makes me think a lot about how you describe your family business and sort of going back to basics with your products. We need to go back to the way farming was before the Industrial Revolution. There was a reason post-war why we came up with all these systems, but it doesn't make sense anymore. It hasn't been serving us for a long time. And regenerative agriculture can capture enough carbon in enough time back into our soil to address the climate crisis and revitalize our food system to be healthier and better for you. So I wanted to create this cookbook and my regenerative kitchen. The concept is, how do you take the academia and put it in everyone's hands? How can we help share every person picking up one practice, doing one thing that is actually quite simple? I just met one of the Lundberg family. They're
Rita Lundberg, right?
I don't know where Rita is. Hi. Can you stand up for a second? I'm sorry. I'm going to embarrass her.
Yeah, I know.
So
Rita, we should have had you on this panel, Rita. Rita's family is the famous rice family, Lundberg family.
I mean, I literally almost cried when I met her. I said, you're in my book. She said, I know. I said, well, right, raise your hand if you cook rice at home at least once a week. Thank you. Every person can now buy regeneratively grown rice from the Lundbergs. And now you too can be part of the movement. What I kept hearing from people is, oh, I own Third Plate, I haven't read it. Oh, but I'm not a farmer. And I said, well, but you buy food, right? Remember, by the way, women dominate grocery spend. Women dominate food spend around this country.
Right? Yeah.
Massive. You make the market. I'm going to say that again. You make the market. If you decide tomorrow that every one of your purchases is going to have a regenerative mindset, you will see your grocery store change. You will see the earth change. You will see your health change. It can start with something as simple as rice, which is why they're in the book. Every American home cooks rice like a core staple. If they can do it, at scale, it is absolutely within our grasp. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but that is why I wrote the cookbook.
Amen, sister.
I think cookbooks are really powerful change makers. They are, and they're more approachable. When you're cooking something and you read the little blurb, it gets in your brain. It's a lot harder to hand someone a 200-page research paper and be like, you too can do it. You're sort of like, I got on page 3.
Thank you. Okay, we're about to run out of time. I just want to ask you, we'll keep the answers short. You both have daughters. Your daughter is here today with us, and I'm so happy you're here. I want to embarrass you and point you out. But I'm just wondering, given what we're about to go into over the next few weeks, what are your hopes for your daughters?
I mean, that's
Sorry, I didn't know.
That's a
We
big
have
question.
80 more minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was thinking about this when I was looking at the questions that you had sent, and I was thinking one of the questions was sort of how do you kind of keep pushing forward, and I was thinking about what my answer is, and I think it's something that is really important to my work, but also my family, my friends. I think you have to create the conditions to dare. And I think that is something that I think about a lot, both for myself and for my team and for sure my daughter. So I hope that I can create the conditions for her to dare. And I think a big part of that is like literally daring to be yourself, living your truth in the world. So hopefully I can do that.
It's going to make me cry. Creating the conditions to dare. That's beautiful.
I'm stealing that, April. That's good. That's a really good one. I know I'm totally going to cry. Also, I'm only 12 weeks postpartum, so like everything makes me cry, just putting that out there. So now I have two daughters. I didn't grow up with sisters, so it's really interesting. I've been thinking a lot about too, sort of this coven, and all my friends who know me, I say I'm a witch. Very proud of that. My friend group is a coven. We're very, very close. I think two things. I think one, living as loud and as unapologetically myself. Like a lot of people said, oh, can't believe you're doing a cookbook and you're on a tour, you have a new baby. And I said, I want to show my kids. I love what I do. I am very passionate about making a difference, and I want them to see that. And I think that's very important, to live what you preach to your own kids. And then two, my favorite anecdote, my older daughter, who's older, 3.5, people always say to my son, oh, he's so smart, he's so brave, he's so curious. And with my daughter, and she is striking, they're always like, oh, you're so cute. She goes, I'm strong. And I'm like, yes. So I think for me, I think a lot about building up the character, not the outside, focusing a lot on how we can give her confidence. And more than anything, like, see something, say something. I always tell my kids, negotiate back with me, stand up for what you want. If you can come to me with a good argument, like, all the rules will change. And I really believe that that's true in life. I think if you have the courage and the strength to stand up for something and to speak out and come up with a good argument, a good product, a good
watch
business
out, they're
around
going to be doing PowerPoint presentations any minute for what they want. Yeah.
And but we reward it. In my house, I say to them, negotiation will get you everywhere. We have a set of expectations and we have a set of guidelines, but I want you to push back. And if you can convince me, you win it. And I do think that that is how the world works. You don't have to just accept the rules, and I don't even want them just to accept mine.
All right. We're going to end on that. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.